So, quick story for you guys, or quick question. Have you ever been watching a couple of children, and one of the little guys, walks over to the other one, and whether they get in an all-out brawl, they start fighting, or he takes his toy, or does something to upset the other child. Have you guys ever seen this happen before? Pretty normal, right? And so you, as the person who's watching the children, you have a couple things that you're going to need to do. Well, the first thing you probably should do is stop whatever's happening. You want to make sure that none of that is happening anymore, and make sure these two kiddos are doing what they need to do. But you look at the other one and you say, I'd like for you to look at him and say, you're sorry. Now, many of you in this room know what the response is. The response is a young child that goes, I'm sorry, right? And you know they say it, and you know that they don't mean it, right? They are saying it because you asked them to do it, and you're going, no, I need you to say it again. Like, you need to tell them you're sorry, and then you get the same response, right? And I was that kid. I had a hard time telling my sister that I was sorry because she liked to take my stuff, and it really bothered me. I liked having my things. I did not need a lot of things. I just needed my things, right? And I'm sure, growing up, a few of you probably had the same thing as me, and I just needed my things. And she took them all the time. And so I was constantly going and retaliating, and I was constantly having to say that I was sorry. The problem is that my tone never truly meant it. I always had some sort of attitude or some sort of thing in my tone that made my parents go, you got to say that again, over and over and over, until I learned, which took way longer than it should have. But you have been in this situation before, whether that's with children or with other people. You know when they say something and you know, I'm not sure that they actually meant it. Technically, I obeyed, right? I said that I was sorry to my sister. But technically, the behavior did change. I didn't do it anymore, and words were said. And look, you can force a child to sit in the corner. That happens all the time. You can force a child to say you're sorry, but you cannot force someone to mean the words they say. And I think that's really, really important, because as things progress and as people grow up, adults do the same thing. They're just a lot better at hiding it. It is truly something that we are constantly dealing with in our daily lives. Just being with people all the time, you get to see people say things and they don't mean them. We learn how to comply without surrendering. We learn how to show up and perform the part, do what we have to do, say the right things, and then we just protect our heart and we protect what's underneath. And that's challenging, because behavior modification is a real thing. We change how we act based on who we're around, or what we need to do, or what we need to achieve. If you can get your feet moving in the right direction, but your heart stays exactly the same, what's the point? See, compliance doesn't change character. I said I was sorry many times, but guess what? I did the same thing again. And sometimes it was right after I said I was sorry. And a lot of us can understand and put ourselves in these shoes as well, because a lot of times we do say things. Maybe we do say sorry, and yet the very next day we do the same thing. And so we've been in this series called Overboard, where we've been talking about the story of Jonah. And if you're familiar with the story of Jonah, I would love for you to go read it. It's literally 4 chapters. It's 2 pages of my Bible. And I would love for you to go and read it. But the ending of Jonah is a weird one. It is not a satisfying story. It's that you don't leave feeling happy. You leave with a question. And we're going to get to that question at the end of today's message. But this is a story that's challenging. And I hope that it challenges you in a way that it challenged me as I was preparing it. But the question that Jonah is faced with is, he finally does the right thing, right? He finally decides to go to Nineveh and do what God asked him to do. But the question is whether he became the right kind of person. And so kind of a quick recap where we've been. Week 1, God called Jonah to Nineveh. He told him to go. You have to go to the most brutal people, to your kind, to the Israelites, and he runs away. He goes the opposite direction of where he is asked to go, and God sends a storm. And that storm is terrifying, and he finally realizes that it's his fault. And he put everyone on that ship in danger. And he realizes that he must be thrown into the sea, and that he must sacrifice himself so that the others don't perish. But here's the thing. In week 2, we saw where he was in the water. And he is ready to end it all. He's ready to say, you know what, I'll just drown here and I don't have to go to Nineveh. But then we see that God sends a fish that swallows him up and takes him to the bottom of the ocean. And in last week, we talked about his prayer. His prayer was beautiful and it was eloquent and it was theologically sound, but it was missing one thing, and that was repentance. He had zero change in his heart in that prayer. It was a beautiful prayer, but it did not show that he had surrendered what he needed to surrender. No acknowledgement that he was wrong. Just, thank you for saving me, Lord. I could have been dead, but now I'm in the belly of a fish, and it's better than being dead, I guess. Thank you for saving me. No acknowledgement of changing. And so today we're going to pick up exactly where we left off last week. And so Jonah chapter 2, verse 10, and it jumps right into it. And it says, and the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. I mean, that's just an incredible verse in itself, and it's just got a lot there. But as we continue in chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, it says, then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Okay, so pause right here. He gets a second chance. That's awesome, right? You would think that whatever he did running away, maybe he wouldn't get a second chance, but no. God says, no, I've given you a second chance, and I want you to follow through with what I asked you to do. And God says, go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. God doesn't give up on Jonah. He gives Jonah that true second chance. Jonah did not deserve it, but yet he got it. And I think this is Jonah is going literally to the ends of the earth to do the opposite of the one thing that God had commanded him to do. But you and I know this because we sit here today, that God is the giver of second, third, and fourth chances. But to Jonah, this was rare. And so this time, Jonah decides that he's going to listen. In chapter 3, verse 3 through 5, it says this, Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now, Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Once again, we have 3 days, right? Nothing happens by accident. Jonah began going a day's journey into the city, proclaiming, 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. And so this was the message that he was told. 40 more days, and if you don't turn from what you're doing and you don't change your ways, God will strike this city down. And you can imagine that one of the reasons why he didn't want to go is that this would be incredibly terrifying to do. As we talked in week 1 and 2, the Ninevites were extremely violent to the Israelites. They destroyed tribes left and right. They did not care. They did what they felt they needed to do. But here's what's important. The Ninevites believed what Jonah was saying. They believed God. A fast was proclaimed, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth, took off their robes. And it says even the king took off his robes and put on sackcloth to say, God, you are the king. And they surrendered everything they were to follow Jesus. Now, I want you to feel the weight of this moment. This is Nineveh, one of the worst, most violent empires of the ancient world. They were skinning people alive. And here they are, Jonah walking in the middle of their city, proclaiming that they will be destroyed. And yet every single person bowed at the feet of Jesus, started to fast, and began to say he's over their life. This should have gotten him killed. Jonah should have never been able to walk any further. He should have taken a couple different steps and then cut down at the knees. But you see, God had a plan for the Ninevites. God had a plan for Jonah, and he needed them to hear the good news. But because God knew how they would respond. Jonah didn't. So you can imagine the fear. And you might think, well, yeah, but it's not compared to the fear that he was just in the belly of a fish at the bottom of the ocean. But I guarantee you, he felt even more fear than when he was at the bottom. And I love that it says from the greatest to the least, from the king all the way down to the peasants and the workers of the tribe or of the city there, they all bowed and they worshiped God. I think that's so powerful. Just something so simple that was proclaimed that they decided to follow the Lord. You see, even the king gets off the throne, takes off his robes, and sits in the dust. And we see in Jonah chapter 3, verse 10, it says, when God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he relented and did not bring them the destruction that he had threatened. This is one of the greatest revival moments that we have in the Old Testament. This is an incredible situation, entire city from one person's mouth. Following the directions of the Lord, they bow down at the feet. And I think it's so powerful. In Jonah, he did what he was supposed to do. He helped them be saved from destruction. And you would think that Jonah would be ecstatic and love the outcome of what happened. But here, in just a few moments, we're going to see where Jonah's heart truly is. But this entire city, the worst city, turns to God. And I love that. And Jonah should be like a king in there. They should love him, and he should enjoy every single moment that he's in there because it worked. Mission accomplished. He should feel a sense of gratitude that he did it. He followed through. He's no longer running. But that's not what happens next. And here's what the book of Jonah is really about, in my opinion. And it was never about whether Jonah would go to Nineveh or not. It was always about what Jonah carried in his heart. It was always about what he experienced and how he carried himself in these moments. Because yes, the story of Jonah is a story about obedience and redemption and getting a second chance, and it's a beautiful story, but it's only part of it. Jonah's heart is one of the biggest parts of this story. And it was always about what Jonah brought in his heart. And in chapter 4 is where it finally comes out in the story. And what we see from Nineveh is genuine heart transformation. Now let me tell you, this revival that happened in the city was not just this seems like a fun thing to do, let's go ahead and follow that. No, they changed. They changed everything that they were. They were no longer doing anything that they did before. And they were a brand new people in this city. There was not behavior modification. They didn't just say the words and not really, believe it. They truly transformed. Everyone in the city transformed their heart except one. And you might be thinking it's maybe the king, or it's maybe some person that just, is a fisherman for the city. No, it's Jonah. Jonah's heart was hardened, and he had a hard time celebrating what they were experiencing. And here's where the story gets really honest. Because Jonah can do the religious things, right? He can show up, he can say the right words like he did, and he can complete the mission. But he can do all of that without it touching his actual heart. And that's what religion without relationship truly is. It's external obedience detached from internal change. You can learn the behaviors. You can come in and raise your hands and sing praise and worship, and you can do all these different things, but you might not actually be changed. You can learn the language, you can learn the rhythms, you can learn all the things you need to do to seem like a Christian, to seem like a person who has found and is following Jesus. And you can look like the right type of person. And I imagine every Ninevite thought that of Jonah. Look at this great, strong man that loves his Lord. You see, religion got Jonah to Nineveh, but it cannot force Jonah to care about Nineveh. You see, religion can get you to the right place, but it cannot give you the right heart. It cannot give you the right heart. And so we continue with Jonah's kind of thought process here in Jonah chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. It says, "But to Jonah this seemed very wrong." Their heart transformation, the way the city changed, it seemed very wrong to him, and he became angry. He prayed to the Lord, "Isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? This is what I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you're a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live." Now let that land for a second. Let that sink in. He's basically saying, God, I knew that you were going to give them a second chance. Why did you have to send me? And he's basically saying, I can't live with myself anymore. I am so angry and tore up about the way that you sent me through all this whole entire journey just to give them a second chance when I knew you could have done it in the first place. He's so angry that they showed mercy to Nineveh, that he would rather die than to live in a world where they were forgiven. That's powerful. And what makes this moment so extraordinary is that Jonah can quote the character of God so perfectly. God, you're so gracious. You're compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love. This is very religious. He's doing a great, he's right. He knows the theology. He just doesn't want to become it. He wanted God's grace for himself, and he wanted God's judgment for everyone else, especially the Ninevites. And here's what I want you to see. This is not just Jonah's problem. This is our problem. This is our problem. We want mercy when we need it, and we want justice when they deserve it. And God's response to Jonah is not a lecture. It's a question. Verse 4, it says, "But the Lord replied, 'Is it right for you to be angry?'" I mean, he could have struck Jonah down right there. He said, "Look, you haven't listened this whole time, and you haven't changed your heart, and now you're angry?" But he asked one simple question. Is it right for you to be angry? This question is not a condemnation towards Jonah, and it's an invitation. He isn't shaming Jonah for his thoughts and what he just said. He's surfacing him. And I think God is asking the same question to some of us today. Is it right for you to be angry? Is it right for you to be bitter? Is it right for you to be resentful towards someone? What about being unforgiving? Is it right for you to do those things? Let's sit with each of those for a moment. Anger. Jonah's furious that God showed compassion to the people he hated. And if we're honest, and I want to be honest with you, most of us have people in our lives whose restoration would be hard to celebrate. And that's a powerful statement. Because there's people in my life that if I'm truly operating in my heart and the things that are broken in my life because I am a human, it would be hard to celebrate someone's restoration, especially someone that I had a lot of anger toward. The person who hurt you, who walked out, who betrayed your trust, it'd be so hard to celebrate them. If they came to faith tomorrow, could you truly celebrate that? In your heart? Not just saying, "I'm so happy for you," but truly meaning it? That's a question worth asking. Or would some part of you wish that God made them pay first? And the second thing we talk about is bitterness. Bitterness is anger that is settled in and put up some furniture and is hanging out in your life and is just chilling there. So whenever you're going through different things in your life, you just, I remember that. Remember when they hurt me like that? Remember how mad that made me? Remember that emotion? It became a posture. That anger became a posture of how you operate. It happens when anger stops passing through and starts living through you. This bitterness is outward facing sometimes. You know people who are bitter, and you know as soon as they start talking about something, you go, "Here we go again. This is the same thing." And maybe that's you. Maybe that's things in your life that you're struggling with. See, Jonah isn't just having one bad day. He's been carrying this for a long time. He hated the Ninevites. And then what if it's being resentful? And this one's the most subtle of them all. Resentment usually has a comparison underneath it. I did the right thing, and yet they got mercy. They treated me so wrong, and yet they get a second chance. I stayed faithful, and they got restored. And I'm sitting here broken. I suffered, and they seemed to get grace for free. These are powerful thoughts that you and we have often because we're broken human beings. Resentment happens when grace feels unfair because it went to someone who we think doesn't deserve it. But here's the thing about that. None of us deserve it. Which the last thing what we just said a minute ago is unforgiveness. Unforgiveness keeps you emotionally loyal to the wound. You sit here going, that cut on my arm, it's been there and it hurts. And I'm always going to remember how this cut happened. It doesn't hurt the other person anymore, but it still hurts you. And you consistently think about it. And you're connected and going, I remember how that happened to me. Remember how that person treated me. Remember what they said to me. It keeps you anchored to that moment, to that exact feeling of what you felt when it happened. And it makes you impossible to fully receive the grace that God wants to give you, because you were still withholding it from someone else. See, you cannot fully receive grace and refuse to give it at the same time. You cannot. It does not work that way. See, the book of Jonah doesn't end with a resolution. It ends with a question. God asked Jonah, is it right for you to be angry? And then Jonah never answers. And like I said, if you don't believe me, go read it. He doesn't answer. We're just led to believe that Jonah just continues living his angry and bitter life full of unforgiveness, to where he is just mad at God for forgiving those that he can't forgive himself. And I think this is on purpose. I think this is on purpose because the question really isn't for Jonah. Here we are so many years later. This question is for us. So what do we do with this? How do we move forward? What do we take from today's message and put it into our lives today? We start where God starts. Not with a command, not with any list of checklist things we got to do, but with the question, is it right for you to be angry? Do you have that right? Is it right for you to be bitter toward those people? Resentful? Unforgiving? That's the question that we're asking ourselves today. Is it right for me? Not, can I justify it? I love to justify a good emotion that I have in my life. Well, I can feel this way because of what happened to me here. Is it right? Is that right for me to do that? Maybe we go, well, I can explain why I feel this way. Maybe we have some explainers. I explain things too. This is why I said what I said, because of what happened here. Maybe it's, well, didn't they deserve it? Didn't they deserve that punishment for what they did? Those aren't the questions we need to be asking. The question is it right? Is it loving and living and looking more like Jesus? Because Jonah could justify every bit of his anger that he had. He had all of the reason to believe what he believed. And the Old Testament tells us about all the things the Ninevites did. He had all the justifications he needed. They really did wipe out 10 of his 12 Israelite tribes. He hated them. His hatred made complete sense. And here's the thing, your hurt probably makes complete sense too. The things that you've been through makes complete sense for you to be angry. No justification needed. You just feel it. And I'm not minimizing that. I'm not minimizing the things that have happened to you. But the question is it right? Justified anger and right anger are not always the same thing. And here's what 3 weeks of Jonah have been building toward, right? Week 1, you can run from the call, but you can't run from the caller. He is always going to be after you. No matter what you are doing in your life, he is right around the corner asking for you to pick up the phone anytime he calls. In week 2, we talk about the mercy that saves you is also meant to surrender you. The fact that Jonah was saved by the fish, and yet he didn't surrender. In week 3, the whole idea in this message today is God's mercy is not meant to stop with your rescue. It's meant to reshape your heart. See, the fish got Jonah's feet moving. It got him going in the right direction. But it never got to his heart. It never changed who he was. And God is still asking the same question he asked outside Nineveh. Not just to Jonah, but to you. Is it right for you to be angry? That's the question I want you to ask yourself today. Is it right for you to be unforgiving to someone? Is it right? It's a simple thing. No matter what you're going through in life, whether you find yourself to be a lot like Jonah in this moment, just ask yourself the same question that he was asked. Is it right for me to feel this way? Is this what God wants me to live like? Is there someone in your life whose restoration you'd struggle to celebrate? That's a true inward look on your heart. That's a true test to see where you're at in your own life. And that's a question worth asking. You see, the same grace that saved you wants to flow through you. The fact that maybe you found Jesus and you've been walking through that same grace that saved you wants to go to others. Jesus wants you to walk like he did so that you can help share the good news of him. And maybe it can't flow through you if you're standing outside of the city too angry to go into it. See, the book ends without telling us what Jonah really decided. We really don't know. And we don't know if he answered God's question. I hope he did. I truly do. We don't know if his heart ever changed. We don't know if he ever walked back into Nineveh with compassion instead of contempt. The story ends. And I think it's the most honest story, ending to the story that it could have. Because the question is still open for us today. 3 weeks ago, we started talking about how God called Jonah to go somewhere he didn't want to go. Jonah ran, God pursued. Jonah went to the bottom, God rescued him. Jonah finally obeyed. Nineveh repented. And Jonah sat outside the city, rescued, obedient, but still angry. Don't be Jonah at the end of the story. Don't sit there and be full of anger, resentment, and unforgiveness. The same God who came after you and helped you find him is coming after the people that you'd rather leave alone. And his question for you today is the same one he asked Jonah. Is it right? Because God's mercy is not meant to stop with your rescue. It's meant to reshape your entire heart. So whatever you're going through in your life, it's supposed to change you. Jonah didn't walk out of Nineveh changed. He walked out the same, if not a little worse. And if that is not the best example of what it's like to be human sometimes, I don't know what is. So many times in our life, we expect things to be changed, and yet we walk through something and we come out the same on the other side. Is that because of what happened to you, or is that because of your heart? And maybe you're in this room, and maybe you know Jesus, or maybe you haven't found Jesus before, and maybe this is an opportunity for you to go, I want to be different. I want to be changed. I don't want to be Jonah at the end of my story. I don't want to sit there and go, I can't believe you healed everyone else, everyone that was wrong to me, when they didn't deserve it. And I hope that everyone in here can look into the mirror one day and say, change me, not them. You see, his feet was moving in the right direction, but his heart never pointed the right way. It was always facing the wrong way. And my goal and my hope for you this morning is that your heart can face toward Jesus. Will you pray with me? Father, thank you for this moment. Thank you for how you love us. Thank you for how we can have a posture of surrender. Thank you for 3 weeks of a great story, and that you didn't give up on Jonah and you don't give up on us. Thank you that you pursue us when we run, that you meet us at the bottom, that you give second and third chances. But Lord, be with us as we don't let our rescue just stop there. We let our rescue continue to reshape our hearts. And if there's someone in this room that wants to find and follow Jesus, that they would pray a prayer that goes like this and say, I know that I don't deserve it, but I believe that you sent your son down on the cross to change my life so that I can have eternity with you. And I will do everything I can to change my heart and to surrender and to follow you with everything that I am. Lord, be with us in this moment. Be with us as we go out into our cities and our jobs and our workplaces and our families so that we can continue to to be the hands and feet of you, and that we can ask the question, is it right to feel that way? So that we can have our heart changed to look more like you. We love you. We thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.